When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. Got another good episode for you today. This week we're bringing on Jim. He had a UFO experience that he wants to share with us out of the great state of West Virginia. So let's go ahead and bring Jim on now.
Okay, so my name's Jim. I live in Calhoun County in West Virginia. I live in the actual in-town kind of high up area. I'm kind of up on the hill on a pretty big open area where I have a pretty good view of the sky. You know, there's not a lot of, all the trees are like, you know, probably a couple, 2 miles or 3 miles off in the distance. So I got a pretty good unobstructed view of like the sky from the side deck of the house where we live. And I'm not a real big, you know, alien UFO guy or anything like that. I am a little more convinced now after these 2 times, but, so anyways, the first experience that I had, in the evening times, I'm usually at that point in time, and this has been probably, it was probably around 2 years ago when I had the first encounter. You know, it was summertime, it was nice. I've got an old Jeep that I work on all the time, and that's why I had been pretty much every evening. I was always outside at point in time, you know, working on the Jeep. So later in the evening, I would kind of sit out on the deck, and I used to be a pretty big cigar pipe guy, so just kind of chill out, you know, and relax. It is relaxing just to sit out there and have a cigar or whatever. Kind of got that from my old man, always done it.
That's all right, man.
Not a healthy habit.
No,
so sometimes you'd be, you know, I'd be, sometimes it took me over an hour, 2 hours to get through one of those cigars or longer, depending.
Yeah.
You know, so I would work on the Jeep, and, you know, come dark, you know, I don't have a garage or anything. So I would kind of just quit, you know, usually around 9:30, 10 o'clock. Of course, you know, summertime, July, August, it's, you know, it's daylight for a while. So, you know, I would kind of just sit out there and relax, just kind of trying to unwind between working and everything else. And I kind of noticed, and my father-in-law is the same way. He lives down the road, I don't know, probably 600-700 feet down from me, and they live off of another corner, actually on kind of the main route, where as I'm back off farther towards like the woods area.
Right.
But he had kind of noticed, he's what I refer to as a front porch sitter. You know what I mean? One of them old school guys.
Oh yeah, man.
He's always outside. So, you know, if there's anything going on whatsoever, man, he's like the night watchman. He's always there. So,
oh yeah.
he always was telling me like, well, I've been seeing like, you know, these lights that kind of come out of the, like where I was saying, you have the wood line, and you have, you know, it's a couple miles back off for me, maybe even further because it is a long distance. You know, I am surrounded by a pretty big wooded area. I'm just like up higher than everybody else.
Right.
So, he's like right more central, right above in town from me. So, but anyhow, he had been saying, well, these lights or whatever that he can kind of see sometimes coming up above these tree lines that would kind of almost close to the same time in the evening times. And I never really took a whole lot into really, I mean, just kind of, okay, well, there's some lights come up out of the tree. I mean, you know, like I said, I'm not a huge, like, you know, alien UFO guy.
Right.
You know, when it gets into some of the Bigfoot stuff, that's why I started watching this podcast, is because you know, the big stuff I'm very interested in.
Yeah, man.
I've never had an experience, you know, with that, but
yeah.
I've never really had any kind of paranormal stuff or anything. So
Yeah.
this is kind of like it really hit me pretty hard the first time that this happened. But anyways, I was on the deck. And it happened to be it was actually the next night that my father-in-law was telling me that there's lights would come up and they would kind of just like move from left to right and like kind of just move erratically. And I just kept telling them, well, they were probably drones or something. It's not like we get a lot of drone activity here,
right.
not especially at night. But I was sitting on the deck and I kind of noticed, I don't even know if this is really connected to what actually I experienced close there, but I did notice this light would kind of come from you got the tree line, and it's a pretty bright light, and it was like a steady, not a pulsing, not a flashing, it was just a steady kind of just almost like a super intense like LED kind of light.
Wow.
It would kind of come and almost, and it was the same spot. I watched this several nights in a row. It would come up out of the trees from that kind of like wood line on the hillside. And it would almost like, it would come up and then it would kind of hang in one spot. And then it would kind of come up a little bit more. It never really like zigzagged or did any kind of crazy maneuvers or, you know, at any kind of high rate of speed or anything. So I'm like, well, you know, maybe it's a satellite or something. I don't know.
Right.
But anyhow, I observed that for several nights. And it kind of did intrigue me a little bit. Because like I said, you can look up the flight pattern of satellites.
Yep.
So, I mean, I did this. That it wasn't a satellite flight pattern for us. So that kind of intrigued me even more. So anyways, I observed this thing pretty much all through the week. And then this was like, I'm pretty sure it was on a Friday. I wish my son would come on because he was with me and observed, you know, pretty close firsthand with, when the stuff was going on. But I observed this, and this is a Friday night. So, you know, I was kind of this is getting pretty late. Everybody was kind of gone. My wife usually sits out with me, my daughter. She was, you know, only like 3 years old at the time. So, you know, she was like, well, I'm going in, it's bedtime. So I had been sitting out there for a while, actually by myself before my son actually had came out. So
Right.
I'm sitting there. And after, like I said, that same light I had observed all week long, doing almost the exact same thing, same light, never changing hardly, almost the same time every evening would come out of those trees.
Wow.
So, and I mean, that on itself was like very odd to me.
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, my neighbors had noticed it. And I had took some photos that weren't fantastic.
Right.
Because, I mean, it was off in the distance.
Yeah.
You know, with the cell phone, you can only do so well. I mean,
Yeah,
no
man.
matter what quality, I had a Samsung Note 9, and it didn't even take that great of photo quality of it.
Yeah, it never turns out like we want it to, man. ever.
No, it don't. I even had it on night mode trying to get, because I had seen this thing so much. So I was actually trying to set my camera settings to get better footage of this thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I had posted some pictures, I believe, of that on, it was on my Facebook. So my neighbor, they came out the one night, and, was kind of, they started noticing. She came out in her yard. She also, she had also seen it this was like Thursday night that she had came out, and she's seen that light, same thing as I did. And she's just like, what is that? And I have no idea. But anyways, the Friday night, I was chilling out on my deck and smoking a cigar, and it was probably around, honestly around, I want to say 11:30, closer to midnight time, because it was starting to kind of cool down, the night air and stuff. And like I said, I have no trees around my area whatsoever, so I've got a really good view. Well, I was kind of just relaxed. Well, the only reason why I noticed this thing at first was because it came from behind me, not in front of me, and it was super, super low.
Oh, wow.
And it was making, I don't want to say it wasn't making, it was an odd, I want to say like a really low humming, buzzing, kind of, maybe you could just faintly hear.
Yeah.
That's why it snuck up on me. When I say snuck up on me, it just kind of felt like that's what it did, because it reminded me, first off, this thing was like, it was pretty big. I mean, my house isn't huge, but I have a 2-story basically. And this thing was, I want to say, at least as big as the top part of my house. It was
Really?
very large. Yes,
Wow.
it was big, and it was very close. So I would say, son, would you probably figure it was probably 35 feet, 45 feet in the air from us above our roof of our house? See, because my deck comes off our house, and I mean, I'm short, and I can reach up and grab my gutter, and then we've just got the peak on our house. And this thing was maybe, I want to say 15 feet, 20 at the most above the peak of I mean, this thing was like super, I could really make out really good detail. It took my breath away. It kind of scared me.
Yeah.
My son was sitting next to me in one of our camp chairs. Like I said, we were just chilling out there. I was kind of sitting away from him from the cigar smoke, and I was blowing smoke rings. That's how I noticed this thing. I had my head, and I'm blowing smoke rings, and I just seen this kind of dark. It was weird because it wasn't really like, because it was dark, but I could make this thing out completely.
What it looked like. This is crazy.
It was a triangle.
Okay.
Like, perfect triangle is the best way I can describe this thing. Not a ton of light on this thing. The one thing I remember, it had like one light that was red in color in the middle of the bottom of this thing. I don't remember it like pulsing or strobing. It was how it kind of, it was crazy because it was so big and it was so close to us. I almost thought it was maybe some kind of aircraft that was, I mean, it scared me because I thought it was crashing because it was so low to the house. I mean, like, it was just crazy how quiet it was and how this thing was so close to us, and it snuck up on us. So it kind of reminds you how it was moving, of like how you see, like, I don't know if they do it anymore, but like when I was a kid, I used to see like those Goodyear blimps would float kind of, through the air.
Yeah.
So this thing kind of almost was like what you'd see of something that was kind of just floating, like that Goodyear blimp would look like moving kind of like one of those Goodyear blimps, like kind of in like just a weird motion, kind of like that. Like, I mean, it would turn a little bit. I do remember it kind of turning kind of at an angle coming over the roof of the house. And I think I remember this so well because it really, at first, it really, really kind of scared me.
Oh yeah, it'd have to.
I mean, this thing was just like, it almost felt like if I had, let's say, a baseball or something in my hand, it felt like I could probably throw it and hit this thing. That's how close it kind of felt to me.
Yeah.
But made no basic noise other than like this weird hum buzz kind of sound. And it wasn't even, it's so hard to describe because I've never really heard that kind of sound with anything in my life. Almost like it would more mimic what I would say in like an electrical buzz.
Okay. That's what I was trying to picture. Yeah, man.
I mean, it's just hard. It's very hard. I mean, like I said, this thing didn't really have like a crazy amount of lights on it or anything. It just had that one red kind of light in the middle of it. And I'm thinking, well, this thing's way too big to be a drone because, I mean, we're talking like double wide trailer size. You know, I mean, the top part of my house is pretty big, you know. So, you know, I mean, it can't be a drone.
Right.
And you can hear a drone. I mean, I do a lot of RC stuff, and I've flown drones, and I've done quadcopters. And, I mean, you hear these things. They emit noise. So I was like, and it couldn't be that big, you know, either way. I mean, that'd be insane to have something that big flying it like. So it kind of just drifted over us. And I don't know if it felt like a long time, and I don't know if it was a long time. It did just feel like it hung there for a while to me. And I was yelling, like it scares my daughters, that kind of stuff. So
right.
I was trying to get my wife to come outside. And she even thinks I'm kind of crazy for like sharing the experience and everything. But
oh, no, man.
This is just really kind of like, it's been in the back of my mind. And I mean, I've talked to people about it. Like I said, I'm not like some, you know, UFO off the charts down every rabbit hole UFO guy.
Right.
You know, I mean, this thing definitely put me in more of a mindset of, well, there's something.
Yeah.
Definitely for sure.
Yeah.
Because I have friends that have been in the military, particularly in the Air Force and stuff. Yep. And, you know, I had some pictures, which I had shared them to my Facebook page. I didn't get real good. I didn't get the pictures because I had my phone over on the other banister on the deck. So I got, because this thing kind of, once it kind of hung there for a while, and this is going to sound even crazier, okay? When it was kind of just hanging there, and I want to say slowly turning, just ever so slowly turning, I swear for the life of me, it looked like that it had like, I don't know the symbols, but would remind you of like Roman numeral symbols on the bottom of this thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, this thing was like super close to us. And it really did seem like it at least hung there. What do you think, son? It probably hung over us for a good 45 seconds to a minute, close to it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, probably like a minute or so, he said.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it definitely did not care, I guess.
Right.
That's there, I'm assuming. And it kind of was it when I got my phone, because I had to get up to get the phone. I was trying not to take my eyes off this thing, and I tried to get to my phone in the middle of all that, and then trying to get my camera on. And again, like I said, I hadn't honestly had this phone for very long, so I wasn't super great with it, trying to get into my camera. So I did manage to get into my camera, and it's just like when I moved and started going after the phone, I noticed it, and it went not fast, but like a gradual, just straight up and we have one tree that's in the back.
Yeah.
And it kind of just stopped a little bit above, maybe 5 foot above that one tree that we have. And then just kind of, it didn't accelerate super fast. It just kind of slowly started traveling forward away from the house. I did get a couple pictures, and I posted them to my Facebook and sent them to one of my buddies that, he was in, like I said, he did some time in the Air Force and stuff.
Yeah.
And he kind of messed around with him to clear him up a little bit. He was like, well, when he was kind of on wherever he was on tour at a few times on maneuvers and stuff, he had told me that he had run into these that looked pretty much almost just like these triangle crafts before.
Yeah.
When he was in the military, and then they're like, he's like, I just don't talk about it because you don't talk about that stuff that much. I mean, because I was beginning to think I was kind of crazy, and my son was like, oh my gosh, that was like a super, I don't think it bothered him as much, probably honestly, as it bothered me at first. And, I've never had any kind of experience with that kind of anything like that in my life, and I'm 40 years old. So, I mean, this is like, I don't know, it just took me completely by, out of, I just had no way of explaining it. I tried to explain it to myself and come up with things.
Yeah, man.
And the more I thought about it, sitting back and, because, for days and days, I'm just like, man, I don't understand what this thing could be. Well, here's even a stranger thing. The next day, my father-in-law babysits for my wife and I through the week because we both work.
Right.
So for some reason, I think if you guys came back out here to the house, right? Or was you outside and seen the helicopter? Or you were still out there? So they observed like a military-looking helicopter
Really?
kind of flying over the area here, and they had like the sides of the helicopter open, and like they could see people in both sides of the helicopter.
Yep.
Because I had shared this thing to my Facebook, and I'm like, oh crap, I mean, am I gonna get? Because I mean, you never know. I mean, strange things.
Yeah, you're right. You don't know for sure. You know what I mean?
My wife was like, don't put that stuff on there. But I just felt like it should be, because I was trying to get a hold of, the direction it went. I mean, I know this whole area because I've lived here my whole life, and I'm like, I know when I saw it going that direction, I'm like, I know this house it's going to be at soon, because I could see this thing forever, that light through the sky, because it was super clear that night until it got. So anyways, I'm on Facebook, and my nephew, who happened to be outside, he was mowing, and it was like, he works away, so when he comes in, he mows till like sometimes 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh wow.
Because he only gets a couple of days with his family because he works so much.
Yeah.
So he was like, he gets a hold of me, and he's like, oh man, I see it. It's out by the school.
Wow.
And he was like, this thing's freaking huge. He's like, my gosh, man. He said, I see it coming. And it was doing the same thing. It was like, he said it was just the same kind of maneuvers, like a slow drift. And there's a valley that's behind him. You got the school, and then you've got like a little wooded area and a valley, and then it's all open behind his property where he's cleared everything. And he's just like, I see it, man. He was like, this thing is, he's like, to him, he thought it looked bigger.
Right.
I don't know. He might, because there's lights at the school, so he might have got a better view with the light. Because he said this thing was like maybe, I think he said, if I recall, maybe 50 feet above the school.
Oh wow, it's so low.
Yeah, it was crazy because it was like, and then it was weird because there was other people that I am friends with that was on Facebook that was like, well, we seen it, and we seen it, and then a couple other people started posting, and I'm like, yeah, I started feeling better.
Yeah, man.
About, I mean, because I'm thinking, man, I'm going nuts or something. I don't know, because I've just never, like I said, this is something that's not really, I'm not really into the kind of stuff, and I don't really. It just really took me by surprise.
Yeah. And I can get that. It's outside of your wheelhouse, and now that it's in front of you, it kind of has to change your whole worldview. You know what I mean, man? Like
it completely did.
Yeah.
Especially for a certain set amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, even still yet, when my son and I go somewhere, he'll watch. He's all the time looking up.
Oh, you got to. Yeah.
You do. And my thing is, I don't, I know a lot of people just, they don't like to talk about their experience and stuff because they feel like, well, this person's kind of crazy or whatever, maybe,
Right.
Me personally, I don't care what people think about me. That's just the kind of person I am.
Me too.
I mean, I'm just like, I know what I see with my eyes, and I know what I seen that night.
Yeah.
My son, he described it exactly when we talk about it. It was his is exactly the same as what I seen. There was no difference in shape or anything distorted, and he was just like, it was this semi kind of metallic black, but not like so black to where you couldn't see it against the sky, because you could still make this thing out as being a triangle. And then I do have street lights here,
right,
that are pretty high up on poles. So that probably did kind of help, with aiding and being able to see it a little better. But then, like I said, my nephew was like, man, he was like, because his wife, she's kind of into alien stuff and everything or whatever.
right.
So she came out, and then she's like, oh my gosh, it's like, because then she started, and she never messages me or talks to me. So, like messaged me asking me what I see. So
Yeah, man.
like this is, we've seen everybody that actually that night, we all had matching descriptions of what this thing actually, physically looked like.
That's so much better too. That's so much better having other witnesses. Man,
It is. It's just really, I was trying to get a hold of my father-in-law. I'm like, you got to get outside. You got to get outside.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because ever since he's seen those lights, he's all the time. He's probably outside right now. Well, we had a little bit, okay, so maybe not, but yeah, he's always out there. And then he'll like call out and be like, "Hey, did you see these lights out here?" Blah blah blah. I'm like, no, because I don't smoke cigars or pipes or anything anymore. Because I was put down with COVID pretty bad and it's probably been almost a year now, and I've just got my breathing and everything kind of back on track. So I'm trying not to do anything to put me back in a bad spot with
right there with you, bro. After in January, I laid down the cigarettes. 3 days later, 4 days later, whatever, I started feeling sick. It was COVID with pneumonia. I haven't picked them back up since. I still can't hardly breathe, man. That was
I'm the same way.
4 months ago.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But I'm thankful the good Lord kept me around. So
amen. That's it.
Weren't that much. So, but so this was 2 years ago, and the second time that my son and I were together again, my mother was going through some pretty bad health stuff.
Yeah.
And couldn't be alone by herself. So we were all kind of taking turns staying with her at night and everything. So I can't even remember exactly what came up, but I mean, it was kind of, this was around Christmas, before Christmas time.
Okay.
Of this year. Of last year. I'm sorry. Christmas time of last year. So And this one probably creeped me out personally a little more than my first experience. And I don't know why it did. It kind of gave me like a real uneasy kind of feeling when this one happened. So my mom lives, I call it the farm, because it's out in, middle of nowhere, BFE,
Right.
out in the woods. So my brother, he's staying with her. He's there. And he's more of a city guy. He lives in Williamstown. So I can't even remember why we were going up there, but we were taking something to my mother that she needed, that I had. So this was probably, I'm guessing, sometime around, it was dark because it gets dark early in the winter here. So, I'm guessing probably like 8:30ish, maybe not around 9 o'clock when we're driving. I call it out the ridge because you're basically just driving out the ridge to get to her house. So we make the turn off the main, about 16, onto her road. And she's only about 2.5 miles down that back road where she lives. And I'm in my Jeep, and we're kind of just enjoying the night, just talking and everything with my son. And I can't remember if I noticed it first or he noticed it. Which one of us noticed? You said the lights. See, there's a cell phone tower back up off on top of in a field, off kind of on its own with the station and a chain link fence down below it. That we kind of ride ATVs and go jeeping out that way a lot of times. So I knew exactly what I thought. Well, what I thought it was that cell phone tower there. So he's seen the lights, and I'm just like, that's the cell phone tower lights. Because they do have a red light on that cell phone tower. So we get a little closer, and there's a kind of the road wise, and you can go out to where the cell phone tower actually is. Or you can just keep going straight to my mom's house. And that tower, the cell phone tower, you can start making out when you kind of get at that midpoint with that Y that road's at. And I'm looking, and I'm like, I don't think that's the cell phone tower because the cell phone tower is the other way, right? So I kind of was like, what is? Well, in the middle of doing that, I noticed there was a couple other colored lights kind of came on.
Really?
And I'm like, okay, this is not the cell phone tower because the cell phone tower is like a half a mile the other way. So we're kind of going, and I'm trying to drive and keep my eye on it too. And like I said, it's a really rural back road. And it wasn't real foggy at that point in time. It was really, really freaking cold. I remember that.
Right.
I do remember that. And there's a dance studio. When you start getting closer to where these lights were in the field, okay, there's a dance studio that's kind of just up this little gravel road, and it's a pretty nice little brick building dance studio. It's really odd. It's built back up into the wooded area. And then you kind of got like my mom's neighbor that has cattle. And I don't know if maybe this might be kind of connected to maybe some of that stuff or not. I don't know. I've never talked to him about it, and I've always wanted to, but I don't want him to be like, oh, you're, crazy. I just wondered, because I do know he had taken the cattle from that field and moved them down to another field.
Okay.
But anyways, that cell phone tower is back up keep that in mind, it's back up in the distance about, at least from that field, if you was to walk it, I'm going to say close to half a mile. Okay. And it's all out, it's an open area. So I'm driving, I was trying to keep myself out of the ditch, keeping my eyes on this thing, because as we get there, it looks big. I mean, I just noticed this is like, this is like pretty good size, whatever it is. And it's kind of not on the ground, but really like it, because that field kind of has a hill on it, like a knoll, but it's like flattened up there above the neighbor's house, back up in between that dance studio and the house. And I'm just like, I don't know if it was sitting in the field or it was hovering or whatever it was doing, but it was just lights, and it looked like to me the lights were in motion. Just kind of maybe a circle.
Really?
It almost seemed to me. I mean, it was really hard to tell. It gets even stranger. So I like grab down low a couple gears and I like floor it, and we take off in the Jeep to this thing. I was going to drive into the field.
Yes.
Because I know him, and I didn't know maybe there was something up there or somebody or something. Because like I said, he has, feeds his cattle. He has, he has quite a bit of money in his cattle stuff, and there's no fence right there.
Right.
So, I mean, somebody could have easily, I thought, man, kind of popped in my mind. I'm like, well, what if somebody's up there messing around with the stuff, or, I don't know. So I'm like, I'm going to drive into the field. So I hit the light bars on the Jeep, and I was like, I'm just going to like bail into this field off the road. And I just was like going down, and all of a sudden this thing just kind of like shoots up.
Oh.
Like, I mean, it just like straight up in the air, like super fast. And then it just like stopped, like just kind of hanging there.
Mm.
I'm like, well, that's not somebody, with flashlights or, because I know some guys go out and they have those, I don't even know anything about coyote season or anything, but, I know guys use, I think maybe there's the red lights.
Yeah, for sure.
To hunt with. So, I mean, I do know there's a big coyote problem in that area. So, and he's had trouble with the coyote and the cattle and all that before. So I thought maybe just a possibility. I mean, it was red lights, but there was also some green lights and stuff too.
Mm.
But I thought, well, just maybe by chance, that might be something that, I don't know. They're, trying to track down a coyote or something that's, but anyways, that thing takes off and it goes up in the air. So, and it just hangs there. So we kind of stopped. And I'm like right at the entrance of that field. So then this thing kind of slowly just starts going towards, from where it was at would be like a left angle towards my sister, because my sister is about 75 yards from my mom's place. And then the neighbor with the cattle, when the field where this was at, is probably, I'm going to say, 250 yards from her place.
Okay.
So and she's on the opposite side of the road. So this thing kind of, you can see it going through, there's no foliage because it's winter. I can see the lights right above the trees. It's just like skimming above everything.
Wow.
I told my son, I'm like, I'm going to chase this thing down as far as I can go. So we take off and I floor it again. And I can literally see it right back up behind my sister's place. She parks her car down below, and her place is up on the hill. And then she's got a parking down here below, like a small driveway. And there's a little path we kind of go in the woods in the corner where our property's at when we hunt and everything. We kind of have a spot there. It's more of a game trail.
Yeah.
We do travel down that sometimes, and then when we're going around putting our like tree stands and stuff up for deer season. So that's right in the vicinity where it's at. Like you got her cars parked there, and then it's just right at the corner of her place, her house, and then right at that wood line, like covering both. It's pretty big because it's covering a pretty big, and I mean it's a little higher than what it was when it was skimming the trees before, but it's not super high.
Right.
And it's doing strange things. What I would think, because if it was trying to, I noticed every time I tried to speed up to catch it, it seemed like it would try to speed up to where it wasn't, like we weren't going to be able to view it. That's how it feels to me.
Man.
So this thing, I assumed we get up to my sister's place, which is, like I said, is right up my mom's, is almost a yard, 75 yards up the road. And it kind of just goes. And I hurried up, pulled in my mom's place, and we're freaking out, my son and I. I barely got the Jeep. I shut the Jeep off, and it was in gear. It's a stick. I didn't get my door shut. I jumped out. Because my brother had been outside. He's a big smoker, and he had been outside. He was outside smoking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, do you not see this? And he's just like, I seen something. And he said, the weird thing is, he's like, I've been kind of seeing it on and off, like, for hours.
What?
Yeah. And he doesn't even tell me about it, And he's a great big skeptic type, like, guy. Like, he's very, very, like, almost he don't want to believe something when he sees it with his own eyes. He's that type of person.
Yeah.
So we're there. I took the stuff. My brother takes it in the house. Well, my son and I walk down. My mom's. It's also got a full basement under it, and there was some stuff down in the basement. I was gonna go down and get some stuff for my Jeep that I had stored down there while I was there. I was just gonna get it, bring it back. And we were walking down through there. My brother comes back out to smoke another cigarette, and my son and I look, and you can see this. I want to say there's a big valley. There's a hunting club that borders our property, and there's a great big huge valley, and they call it Spring Fork. This area call it. And there's literally a road called Mill Ridge Road, and it almost, it's an optical illusion, I guess you could say, but where we're at, because we're still, once again, my mom's house is pretty much up on the hill. So you can view this whole open area in this valley to the Mill Ridge hunting club, the lease road, the road that they go in and out. And there's, the tree line. So we're like, my son's like, I see it. He's like, it's in the trees.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? So I'm looking. I don't see it. And we're there probably it felt like probably at least five minutes went by. And I was like, all of a sudden I see these lights. This thing ain't moving. It's not moving at all. It's just hanging there. And it almost looks like it dips down into the trees, and then it comes back up out of the trees. And then, I don't know. It was super, super strange. And then it kind of travels the ridge line through those, I don't want to say it. I think it was just that made it look like it was traveling through the trees. I'd say they were in an open spot behind them.
Yeah.
You could see those lights.
Man.
And they would see like green, red, green, red, green, red, green. That's basically all the lights you see. Well, then all of a sudden, all I start seeing is red lights. And it's just like strobing red lights. Oh, personally, to me, it looked like it was spinning. To me.
Yep.
My son said he doesn't think so. He thinks it was just the lights going in like a sequence around it. But it reminded me of something slowly spinning. And this sighting kind of, for some reason, just made me feel uneasy when this happened versus the even closer one that I had when we were on our deck.
Yeah.
For some reason, this one really bothered me.
Well,
I actually had trouble kind of sleeping for some reason.
I can understand why. There's you got a lot more going on, man. It's close to your mom's house and your sister's house for one,
Right. And my mom's elderly, lives alone.
Yeah. And this thing, it's interacting with you, so it's like, it's intelligent. Like, you're giving chase, which I love. I think that's like the most awesome thing ever. Like, you're going after this thing, and it sees you, and it is responding to you. That's scary, man.
That's what kind of took me, because see, it's obvious, because when we come up on this thing, from the angle we come up on it to begin with in the field, you couldn't, I don't think, because it was low, and you've got kind of like these you got a lot of woods, and you've got kind of like the rolling, I don't know what you, just like rolling hills
Yeah.
In the area. So I don't think there's not a lot of traffic out there. When I say that, I mean there's hardly, especially at like this time of night.
Yeah.
There's hardly any traffic there whatsoever.
Man.
So I think I almost felt like we kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Rolling up on it there.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, this thing's back in the tree line, and I want to say the distance. I'm just gonna. I'm not real good at this kind of thing. I'm just gonna throw out there a 1.5 miles distance in that tree line from basically our ridge top to that ridge top. I'm just gonna say 1.5 miles.
Okay.
Maybe. But this thing you can see like perfect. The lights, I mean, it almost seemed like it was trying to hide itself for some reason, because it would go kind of low. But anyways, in the middle of all this, my brother, like I said, he's a big, he's very skeptical on a lot of things.
Right.
Well, pretty much anything. Even if he can walk over and pick it up, he still wants to deny things.
Right.
He comes out and he's just like, what the hell is that thing?
Yeah, man.
I think it kind of shook him up a little bit because he had been seeing it on and off while he was out there. And he kept saying he kept getting this low frequency buzzing, humming sound.
There you go.
And he has some hearing stuff anyways. Stuff bothers him. And he was like, it almost kind of felt like it kind of was like giving him a mild headache. And when and like I said, he never alluded to any of this stuff was going on in the process of us traveling there, or anything like that. And then we watched this thing. I don't know. I want to say 10, maybe closer to 15, somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
And to me, I mean, it seemed like it wasn't really moving correctly. It almost seemed like it wasn't balanced how it would move.
Yeah.
And to estimate, like my brother, he's really, really good at like estimating sizes of things with like backgrounds because he's a huge math guy.
Yeah.
So, he's a big bow hunter. And like distances and stuff like that, he's usually like spot on. Like, I mean,
right.
He can call it spot on almost every time. And he's like, man, that thing has to be like at least a half a mile across.
Oh my God.
It's huge. And that's just from what we were going from the lights.
Yeah.
Even if it was stationary and the lights were going, it would still from the light point, from what he could estimate. He's like, man, that thing has to be he's like, it's got to be at least close to half a mile size.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looked huge. It really did. Like I said, I didn't think it was that big, but he's very good at estimating.
Yeah, man.
Because he's one of them guys that can look at the background of something of like a size of a tree and crazy stuff and just be like, well, this thing was that. He's real good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, take his word for it then, man.
I did. I'm like, well, that's you're probably right. Well, it gets even kind of weirder.
Okay. Well, before you do that, I just want to give you a heads up. Hopefully, nothing happens, but I hear thunder rolling outside, and my internet sucks. So if we get cut off, I'll try to get back a hold of you. But go ahead with your story, man. I just wanted to let you know in case something goes black. It's just, Southern West Virginia, man.
I know. We just went through it a little bit ago, right before I got on here with you, and our power and everything was flickering. So.
Yeah, man, it's popping and cracking right now outside. I'm like, okay.
And so, like I said, close to anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes went by, and then we kind of seen they kind of trailed off. The lights kind of trailed off to where we couldn't see them anymore. Not fast, just kind of slow. Well, I was getting ready to go home, so I told my brother, my son's like, where do you think it went? And I'm like, well, I'm in the Jeep. I'm going to go down Spring Fork. And it's pretty, I was like, I'm not worried, in the Jeep pretty much, and I'm close enough. I can get myself out of pretty much any situation. I can call my brother. I'm like, I'm gonna head down this is back secluded road. So I was rolling down through there, we're looking and we're looking. Well, my son caught the lights kind of at the top of the ridge. And this is the hunting club property over here on this side. So it didn't go real far.
Right.
Before it stopped again, just kind of out of view for us, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But there was no way for me to get over there, from where, I could have, but I don't have keys to the gates because, like
Right.
and that'd be trespassing. So
Right.
I'm not doing that. So we kind of sat there, and then the lights kind of went off in the distance. So I just told my son, I was like, we'll go ahead and drive around all the way around the ridge, and maybe we'll run into it. So, we're driving kind of slow. We didn't get home that night till it was pretty late. Considering it's like maybe a 12-mile drive, I think it took me like an hour to make it because we're looking, and stopping and stuff.
Yeah, man.
And I really wanted to get pictures.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is what my whole deal was. I just really wanted to get pictures of it. And so we come home, and it's probably, I want to say maybe, I'm a person, I can stay up. I used to be up real late all the time. I used to go stay up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, get up and go to work 12, 14-hour days, come back, dude. Since I've been sick, I can't do that stuff anymore, but I used to really be up late, man. And then, like I said, my brother, he was in staying with my mom on vacation. So it was probably, I'm just going to say probably closer to midnight, maybe a little later. And I get a message from my brother. And he's like, dude, this thing's back. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, this thing's back out here. And he was like kind of freaked out.
Yeah, man.
And he's like, it keeps flying around the cell phone tower. He's like, it's not, he's like, it's back at, he's like, I've seen it. He's like, and I'm getting that weird buzz hum outside. Like I said, he smokes a lot, so he was back outside smoking while he was out there.
Yeah.
And he's just like, this thing, he's like, dude, it's huge. He was like, I can see it, and it's just hanging by the cell phone tower. And I'm like, well, get our other brother, because he lives down the road the other way. We're a pretty close family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm the only one that don't live in that area. And then my one brother, like I said, he lives in Williamstown. But he's always here every weekend.
Right.
So he tried to get a hold of him, and he was still at work. Because he does over-the-road truck repairs and stuff. So he's who knows when he ever gets home. So I was like, well, you want me to come back out? I'll come back out. So I'd like to get this thing. So he starts taking some pictures of it with his phone. And he was like, it was really weird because it kind of came back closer to the house, to my mom's house. And he had some decent photos of it, and you can kind of make out a little bit of, like, once again, it's dark,
Yeah.
And at this point in time, it was really late, and it was kind of getting foggy a little bit stuff, in the wintertime. And it's, a crappy night. You don't see real great after a certain time, no matter what.
Right.
So they weren't real good photos. He sent them to me and stuff. And but he was like, dude, this thing, he kept going out. I don't think he slept most of the night. And he kept going out and was like, man, this thing's been out here for like all night. He was like, it just keeps going and coming back. And then he was like, it's going the same pattern over and over again. And then sometimes, long towards morning, I guess obviously it left, and we've never that we know of, we've never seen it or anything like that again then. But
Right.
I just thought that was really weird that it actually came back.
That is weird.
That was, people always tell me, well, it was a drone. It was a drone. Well, if it was a drone, it was the size of a double wide trailer.
Right.
It's hard for me, and it made no noise. Like this thing, it was the same as what, I can't tell you the shape of the second one. I want to say it was round.
Right.
That's just what I want to say. My son seems to think, he was like, nah, I don't think it's round. He said, I think it's like a cigar
Okay.
shape.
Yeah.
And we kind of argued. I'm like, no, it was round. I'm like, so we're kind of like, you know what I mean? And he's, you know, he got a better view at it than, because I mean, I was driving.
Right.
Trying to watch it and drive at the same time. But I don't know. That's my two experiences.
Those are phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, they both of them. I gotta say, not that I wanted to have them,
Right.
by any means, but and I'm glad. I kind of glad at least. Like, I mean, I was with my son when I experienced them because
Yeah, man.
you know he does watch a lot of like paranormal shows and stuff. He's into that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I really, like I said, I don't watch. I'm not really like never had like any kind of ghost stuff or you know, I'm not one of these people. You know, I've never like ran into Bigfoot or had these experiences with any. I wish I did because
Yeah.
I truly, wholeheartedly, with all my whole being, that I do 100% believe that you know that is definitely a real species.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
You know, I would love to have that been my experience instead of these weird. And I'm not saying that they were alien. I'm not saying that they were, you know, any little green men or anything. I'm just saying 100% of what I think, they definitely were not like ours. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, man.
You know, I just personally can't see. I know people say stuff like the government has technology and all, but it's just hard for me to believe that. It's just really hard for me to believe that this was like a you know, a military plane or something. You know,
Yeah.
it's just I can't see how they could be.
Well,
That's just me.
I do have a couple of questions, man.
Yeah.
And literally just a couple of questions because that was so detailed. Like I'm writing stuff down, and as I write it down, you're answering it. You know, I was like, "Were you scared?" And you're like, "I was scared." And then I was like, "What size was it?" And you're like, "It was this size." And you know, I'm like, "So you answer my questions. This is like the perfect conversation about it." But
Right.
just a couple of questions. One, did you experience any kind of lost time or anything? Did you or any of your family members or your neighbors feel like? Because hopefully not, you know, you know what I mean. But
I think so. I mean, it did seem like the first one, when it was over us, over the house, everything seemed, it did kind of seem like it was almost, I want to say like maybe, and I don't know if it's from the way the craft was moving,
right.
but kind of slow motion
Yeah.
feeling at first. But I don't recollect, and I don't think so because my wife managed to get outside on the first one and catch the back end of this thing.
Yeah.
And when I said it only had the red light, that's all I could see when it was over. But I did catch like a bluish white light when it was traveling further out.
Wow.
And that, I mean, and it could have just been my camera. I don't remember seeing that light
right
on it, but when I took the picture, that's what showed up.
Yeah.
So I don't remember seeing that bluish white light, but that's what showed up in the pictures.
Yeah.
I will see if I can go back through my history. One of the photos, you can kind of make out the triangle a little bit.
Right.
So I can see if I can send them to you.
I would love that. I would love that if you could send pictures. Yes.
I mean, I'll see what, and then I've got a bunch of those photos of the light that was coming out of the trees.
Yes.
Now here's the even stranger thing. Well, to me, we no longer see those lights that come out anymore.
Well, there goes the next question.
I mean,
did it stop?
Really, we sat out here forever, man. You know, right after that happened, we still had for a while, we had the lights coming out of the tree line, you know, for a short period of time.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, snap your fingers, no more, you know, no more of anything. So, and I'll tell you what's another thing that's weird.
Yeah.
I have a blue Wrangler, and this dog is like, I don't know how to put this. Like, she's very astute.
Right.
Anything at all that's moving whatsoever, or she senses there, she's not mean or anything, but she's, very, like, the best guard dog I've had in 40 years since I've been a kid.
Right.
She is right on it. And she did not come out, make a peep or anything when this thing was hanging around. You couldn't drug her out.
Yeah.
So I found that really odd, especially when we're all out there on the deck.
That is odd.
I just thought that was very an odd thing also. I don't know why it just, kind of just popped in my mind a little bit. But, I tried to, and I remember sitting, I was like, I'm going to remember this stuff because I didn't have to try too hard to remember it, especially the second one.
Right.
The second one gave me a super uneasy feeling. I'm not gonna kid about that.
Right.
For some reason, I had a real, I don't know. I even had trouble sleeping after the second one for several nights.
Man.
I don't know why, because the first one, literally, I could have threw a rock, it seemed like, and hit it,
Right.
But the second one, man, it just, I don't know why. Maybe, like you said, because of my mom and she was there by herself. I don't know. That one hit me harder.
Well, it was personal when you had this relationship. Like that's what I can't get over, man. It's so wild. It's responding to you. It's like,
right.
It was avoiding you. So it's watching you watch it.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was too when we
disturbing.
took off, it was like, boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not like super fast, but it moved out of the way, to where I couldn't get a good, well, it was trying to move out of the way.
Yeah.
I just got lucky enough that, like, the direction it went, I guess you could say I was lucky, but, I mean, my son, he loved it because, like I said, he's into this stuff. I wish he would have come on here because, I mean,
yeah, man,
he'd have, I thought he'd be, really, because, like I said, he talked about this, and then for months, it was wanting to sit outside and watch the sky. Maybe the reason why I haven't seen anything again for a while is because I don't sit out there like I used to.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3 or 4 hours would go by smoking one of those cigars because I would take a break in between, come in and get something to drink, go back out, enjoy what was left. So sometimes there would be times on Fridays I would go out there and sit on the deck until 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Just because I'm one of these people. I work night crews and stuff, a lot of jobs, and that messes up your sleeping patterns. I think did it to me. So I mean, I think that's why I have trouble sleeping at night. Still now. I mean, now I don't. COVID took it out of me. I come home and I'm done. I don't have any energy. So
I feel that, man. I feel that.
I don't even feel like the same person anymore.
Me too. I told my wife, I said, I think I aged 10 years in like 5 days, man. Yeah.
That's how I feel. I don't understand, but I'm slowly starting to get back into it now. The weather's getting better. I'll probably be, I've got a nice little propane fire pit. I'm going to sit out on the deck a little more. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm looking to see these things, but I'd like to have more answers for stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, I got a question because this was not long ago. This one at Christmas time, and
no, it wasn't long ago. No.
What's and I don't mean to creep you out. Okay, so I hope it don't. But it's in this one area, right, and it's low to the ground, and then you pursue, it moves away, you leave, it comes back. Was it dropping off or picking up or looking for anything in particular, you think?
I thought maybe, later, like the next day, I started kind of just going everything stuff in my mind.
Yeah.
And thinking, like, I have seen like a few, like shows with my son about like these like cattle mutilation stuff.
Yeah.
I've never asked my neighbor. I'm assuming if he had something like that happen, he would probably have told somebody about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if maybe it could have been something like that. I do know for some reason he had moved his cattle from there
Right.
and moved them down at another lot that he never uses. And I probably ought to ask him, just because I know he has game cams everywhere.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
He's a tracker also.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've never. He's kind of he's a nice guy and everything, but he's just a little odd, approachable person.
Right.
I don't know how. I mean, because he's a really nice guy. He's just, I
get it,
He's
and
a
it's a weird
retired-
topic too. You know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what he did for a living. He's retired. He was the chief of police in New York City for forever.
Right.
Somewhere in New York City, and he's like that kind of guy. I don't know how he might be like crazy. I mean,
Right.
that's why I've never.
I
Or
get
he
it.
might be the total opposite and be like, heck yeah, I've seen. I don't know.
Yeah. He might be like, I'm glad you asked. Look at my garage. I got one. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is kind of an oddball guy with so I mean, but his cameras, he has game, and he doesn't even hunt anymore, but I know he keeps up with the game cameras and all this stuff and everything, because he's a big animal guy.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the cattle that he gets turns into, it's funny because we always joke around, he turns them into pets. I mean, we always say they're pets. He doesn't do anything with them. He just keeps them forever.
For real.
It's really, but I need to ask him because but like I said, that account still, one of them things, the second one, it's like the hair on the back of your neck. You have kind of, I don't know, when a situation, I don't know, like it feels like, well, this shouldn't be. It just gave me like a really bad, I guess I was scared
Yeah, man.
to a point, but I think it was, and it's hard, I'm trying to find a word to explain it, because it wasn't that I was just scared. It just gave me a real uneasiness that second time for some reason.
Yeah.
And it like weighed on me. Like I thought about the second one way more for
Right.
some reason. And I found that very odd.
I keep trying to put myself in your shoes, and a million reasons come up to be, uncomfortable about it. Like, yeah, you were the pursuer, but it still had control. You know what I mean? And that would be uneasy for me. If I'm after something and I'm like, I hope it don't turn around and come after me. You know what I mean?
That's what my wife, she said, "You're crazy. You're chasing this thing?"
Yeah, man. It's like chasing a bear with a knife. You hope it don't turn around, but you feel cool for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and I was like, my son's like, he's like, I don't know if this is a good idea either. I'm like, we're gonna chase this thing down. I want to know what it is.
That was a great idea, man.
That's kind of how I am. It's the same way, I'm sure, if I came across, big or something, I'm sure I would probably, I'm not afraid to say, as long as it wasn't super crazy aggressive, I'm sure I would probably pursue it. I really would. That's just kind of how I am. I like to poke the bear with the stick, I guess, the proverbial bear with the stick.
Yep.
That's just how I kind of am with everything. I mean,
I get it, man. I am too. I've already committed myself to, if I see one, I will go after it. If I have to die with a handful of hair in my hand, I'm going to have something.
Yeah, that's how, I'm not running from it. I mean,
No.
I know I've heard of accounts of it's not my experience, but my sister and my brother, and this was on my mom's property. Now, I was a kid, probably, I want to say maybe 10-ish. I'll just real quick before we get off here.
Yeah, bro.
I know you do the Bigfoot stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not saying this is Bigfoot. So I was telling you where that UFO was above my sister's place. My dad, because we had a pretty big family. I had 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters. To keep the boys and the girls separated, he bought a little cheap trailer.
Yeah.
And put, like I said, it's about 75 yards down from my mom's house, kind of over on the flat, right, almost again, like I told you, it's at the game trail, the little woods right there. And there's a big window in the side of the trailer that faces the wood line. Well, almost right into the woods, truthfully. So I was a kid, and I'm not gonna lie, when hearing the story, I kind of tried to block it out a lot of times. My sister told it so many times you just couldn't. It was one of them things.
Right.
So my sisters had been living there, and we had been, what my dad was saying, well, what he was saying it was a panther or something along that line would be squalling a lot of, and where the neighbor has the cattle, there's a great big giant pond back there. So there's, fresh water and stuff.
Yeah.
And stocked with fish. You can't go back there and fish and everything. So that's back in that general area we were hearing these noises. And my dad, he retired, hell of a man. Retired a second time, pretty much.
Right.
So he was gone a lot late in the evenings when I was younger, and it was just me and my mom and I, and then, like I said, my two sisters lived in the trailer down from there, and then we had my brothers lived, but they were older, so they were never home. They were out doing whatever.
Right.
I was there with my mom. So anyhow, this was one night. I remember my mom was outside. I was in the house. I was a big video gamer. I was just gaming away. And mom come running in, and she's like, I hear a baby outside crying.
Oh.
And I'm like, I mean, we're talking like, there's nothing around here.
Right.
Nobody lives. There's nobody that lives close enough to hear baby crying there, especially at this time. There was way less people lived out there then than what there is now. And I'm like, Mom, that's, kind of impossible. So we got a kind of a decent size, like 2.5 stall garage that's kind of out away from it in the field, because my parents owned like close to 40 acres of property there.
Right.
And so, like I said, I was a kid. Mom was scared. She wanted to go out. She was like, I hear it's a baby. It's a baby. It's a baby. And I'm like, Mom, there's just no way there's a baby out there crawling around in the field.
Right.
And she got kind of mad. And she's like, well, I'm going to go outside. And I vividly remember we had these old school, Dad bought these old school, they were like, had them square spring top batteries. Just 2 of them.
Yeah, man.
It was pretty bright back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And Dad had like 2 of these things. And like I said, he drove like 100 and some miles together, like 50 some miles one way, 50 some miles back from work. So he always kept these things. He kept one in his car and he kept one at the house for Mom. So Mom grabs this light and goes out there. And I didn't hear the baby crying or anything. So the front door is open on the house. And then, of course, we have a light that's on that garage that I told you that's out kind of away from the house a little bit. And then you got the field behind it. It's always dark back in behind there. So my mom goes out. She's outside for a while. And then I heard, because I was kind of like right by the door sitting in my game chair. And then, like I said, she had propped the screen door open to the house, and the main door's open. So I can just like right outside. Like, I mean, I can almost reach out and touch the, outside of the house. And I heard like, it sounded like a really like crazy loud woman, mixture between a woman screaming and like what you would like a wildcat-ish kind of sound.
Yep.
And I mean, my mom, man, she came back in, grabbed the door, I vividly remember this, trying to get the door shut, and she had the door shock work on the screen door, pulling it. I was like, Mom, I'm gonna break the door. So we got that shut, and she locked the house up. She was scared to death all night, and then Dad came home. And Dad's like, well, it was probably a panther out there or whatever and stuff. And Dad's like, well, I'm not stomping around out there at night. I'm looking around. It sounds like I heard a baby. And Dad's like, there is no baby out there, you know?
Yeah.
But the following night, my sisters were home. It was just me, my mom, and my dad. And I remember my sister come running across from the trailer, the yard, and it's almost a flat. I mean, she was a dead run as fast as she could. Couldn't even concentrate to get the door open for our house. And was like, there's a really big, tall guy with a ton of hair, and he's looking in the window at me. She was brushing her hair. And I'm just, it's hard for me to explain. I should have explained my sister before I went, because my sister is like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. She's not like, she's borderline like, she believes a lot of things.
Right.
As an easy way for me to put that. She is a quick person to go down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Of course, you got to remember, this is a long time ago. This is like early 90s when this stuff's going on, because I was born in 81. So this is like probably like 92, 93-ish, somewhere around there, I'm assuming, around that time. But she says, this thing's like standing. That window's probably a good, I would say, 10 feet to the middle of that window in that trailer, because the trailer's up off the ground. I mean, it had just been set there.
Yeah.
So it's up on box, the frames under this thing. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, there was no deck on it. This is just a trailer. You walk up concrete blocks to get to the front door.
Yep.
It was temporary.
Yeah.
Is what it was. So, my dad's like, well, there's a guy out there looking in the window. And I mean, Dad's like, boom, he's mad. You know what I mean? So Dad's like, well, I'm going to go over there.
Right.
Dad went there, and, he come back, and he's just like, I don't think anybody should be out there tonight. And never really would say anything or tell anybody anything or anything like that. I don't know whether he did when I wasn't around, because, I mean, I'm not going to kid you. I was pretty scared when that was going on, because my sister was like in one of those panics to where she couldn't breathe.
Yeah, man. Yeah, understandable.
And she was like, this thing was just like looking at her with no facial expressions. And she kept, only thing I remember her kept saying, it's not a man, it's not a man, it's not a man. So, and like I said, Dad went and he was just like, well, you stay here. He went over and got my other sister, brought her to the house. And then the next day, my brothers and everybody, I think, kind of went around and stuff. I don't know what, they wouldn't have told me, because, I was kind of scared anyways, because I was a kid. So
right.
I don't think he wanted me to know anything about it. Whether he told anybody else, anything, I don't know. But I just remember, that thing was probably 10 foot tall, at least, because she said it was at the top window, which I do know for a fact. Because I remember them measuring, for sure, we measured the middle of that window is 10 foot. So the top of that window was probably another, like, almost 12 foot. And she said its face was like right directly in that top window.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember that being a kid, that stuck with me pretty hard too. I never seen anything.
Right.
I wish I would have. Well, probably not then, because I probably would have dropped over.
Man.
But then my brother, this was probably about a year and a half ago. Like I said, he's always home every weekend. And he, like I said, he smokes. He's out because, Mom's like, oh, nobody's smoking. And, they don't smoke inside or anything.
Right.
So he was outside, and we had like probably close to, I want to say, 7-8 inches of snow on the ground. And that same garage that I was telling you about before, that's kind of back up off away from the house, it's pretty quiet out there, because it's a little remote and not a lot of traffic travels on that road. They don't plow it, they don't salt it, they don't treat it. We all have like, 33s and 36s on 4-wheel drive Jeeps that go in and out of there. So you're not getting there in, 7 inches of snow in your Subaru or whatever.
Right.
It's pretty bad out there in the winter. And that's why he was there with the phone, because that storm was coming in. So he's out there smoking, and I started getting these messages on my phone. I'm down here with my son, and we're playing Xbox. And I'm like, what are these sounds that you're playing me? And he's just like, I have no idea. He's like, dude, there's something screaming, like a weird guttural, like, yell, and you can hear it. And then you can hear like these weird bird noises sometimes.
Huh.
And I'm like, I have no idea. I was like, I don't know, man. Where'd you record this at? He's like, I'm out here at mom. And I'm like, I don't have no idea what to tell you that is. I'm like, it could be, maybe there's some kind of animal out there or something. And it was very loud. And he recorded this for probably 3 or 4 minutes.
Really?
And sent it to me. Oh, yeah, it went on for a long time. So he was like, well, I'm going to sit out here and smoke another cigarette. And it was still kind of daylightish. Because it was, I want to say like early, because this is like an early winter storm we had. It was still kind of daylight still around 5 something.
Right.
We had a little bit of like low light.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling me, he's frantic sending me these messages. And he's just like, dude, I have no idea what I've just seen. But he said, whatever it was, walked up out of the wood line, walked up the hill by the garage, no kidding. And he said it took its arm and laid it on top of the corner of the garage. There's like our garage, and you got like your normal roof, peaked roof, and then it's on a bank on this side that's kind of lower. And that thing walked up that lower side of the bank. And then he said it like almost like it took its arm and laid up on the roof of the garage, and he was just like, it's a bear. Same brother that is very skeptical.
Yeah.
And just a little bit beforehand, he was recording those noises. And I'm like, okay, I don't know about a bear doing that, but I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a wildlife expert. Well, then I got a little bit after that. He was like, it can't be a bear. He said, because it's walking on 2 legs, and it walked around the back part of the garage. And he said, dude, the head on this thing, he said it had snow. Its shoulders were so wide. He said it had snow, kind of like it was standing in the snow, pouring snow, and piled up on its shoulders, and it was holding the snow beside both sides of its head on its shoulders.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, come on. I mean, he never says any of, he's totally like, like I said, he don't buy into any of the Bigfoot stuff or any of this. Well, he didn't, I should say.
Yeah.
But he was like, this thing just looks at him. He said it was looking at him. And he's like, he said it had to have been a while, but he was like, I didn't realize. He's like, a cigarette burnt down and cut his fingers. And he had just lit the cigarette. You know what I mean? He was like, I don't know if I was smoking it and not paying attention, but he was just like, I don't know. The whole thing was kind of weird.
Gosh.
So he was like, it walks really slow, goes around behind the garage, pushes like some saplings that are between the road bank and the garage, like out of the way. And he's like, this is a big road bank. I want to say that road bank up behind that garage, it's probably a good 5.5, 6 foot step off.
Right.
Well, I don't want to. For it was a step off, because he's like, dude, it just took a step and it was like in the middle of the freaking road.
Oh my.
It's like 7 inches of snow, and then just walks up through the neighbor's cattle field and down the other side, down towards the pond. And that, I mean, that was his. That's just how he explained that to me. That wasn't me. That was my brother. But I just can't think he would be like, he definitely would not make that up.
Right. Plus with the sounds and everything else.
Well, and he recorded the sounds. I wish he would have kept them. I wish I would have kept them, because he sent them to me on my messenger.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's just, those weren't my experiences, but I do remember living through that when I was, the one when I was a kid, then the one with my brother was recent. Well, like I said, probably probably a year and a half ago or so when that one happened, I do believe. Yeah, that would probably be right. But that's I figured, because I know I listen to the Bigfoot stuff on here.
Yeah.
And then a couple other podcasts. Like I said, I do follow the Bigfoot stuff. I wish something like that would happen to me. I went out in the woods and actually tried to, here I don't, I don't know, because there's been a few people that had sightings that I know here and stuff. But they're all like, well, it wasn't real. I don't know what I seen, but that's not what it was.
Right. But those are remarkable. Those are great. Those are great sightings, though, man. I mean, terrifying, yes, for your sister, but your brother had like the perfect sighting.
Yeah, and he said he didn't feel like he was threatened, or it wasn't. Well, he said it. He couldn't really see its face.
Yeah.
And then again, like you said, it was covered in snow, and he was like But the weird thing is we've had, like I said, we do hunt, and the neighbor, I used to help him that lived down below us. He's a huge trapper. He traps a lot. He's trapped, he's 70-some years old, and he's trapped since he's been 5,
Oh, wow.
And he said he's seen this thing a bunch.
Really?
And yes. He's taken, he's never really he was like, I really don't want to talk about it. But, I remember because I was in high school, and then he used to pay us to help him, like coons and stuff like that. He would trap coons, and he would just different animals.
Right.
He lived off that. He was one of those type guys. Lived, like I said, this is kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And he retired, and then he just lived on that stuff mainly.
Yeah.
His entire life. So he would pay us when we were in high school to go down and help him. So I'd be in the garage with my buddy, and we'd be, doing these hides and stuff, and scraping them, and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then I remember him, he's like, well, the one time I remember him did talk about it a little bit. He was like, well, next time you're hunting, you're deer hunting, there's a pond that's off the other side of my mom's property. He said, go back up in there in the rock cove, and I usually sit there. I'll sit there and watch the valley for the deer coming in. If I get in the woods early in the morning, when I hunted, I don't hunt much anymore. So I remember thinking, he's a crazy old guy at the time.
Right.
And I went in there, and he was right. There was these rocks stacking. When I say rock stacking, I mean like rock stacking.
Right.
I couldn't even, my brother and I, my brother's a big guy, and a very stout dude that, I'm talking picks up tractor trailer transmissions and stuff, and carries the stuff around. So we couldn't move the rocks that were stacked, and they're stacked like 5 feet up.
Wow.
And they were stacked around this cove overhang off from this pond. And my brother's like, oh, the crazy neighbor guy that used to live here stacked them. And I was like, yeah, with a dozer. I said, him and I couldn't move one of them that were on the top, and the bigger ones were at the bottom.
Right.
I said, how's that? And I don't even know how the rocks got there, because this isn't there's a cliff overhang. And when I say cliff overhang, it's not really, there's one big giant rock kind of coming out of the hillside. And there's a little stream that runs down. And that's why I said I would go there early in the morning, so the deer would come up and they would drink out of that stream there if you were, deer season.
Yep.
And I would sit on top of that big rock, and it had that overhang under it. And then there would be there was like sticks and stuff kind of layered. But once again, we had a guy that was a Vietnam vet he wasn't all there. He was an all right guy, and that's what my brother, how he used to explain it. He just went down there and was like away from everybody camping. And I'm just like, there's no sign of a campfire. I'm just like, I don't see how he would have done that with any kind of, this is a good walk. It takes, how do you carry the rock in there? There's
Right.
no rocks here. It's clay, mud, and dirt. It's West Virginia.
Yeah.
I don't know where the rocks even came from. I don't. These were huge. rocks that were stacked.
Man.
You know, I've never, like, that's the only thing somewhat even maybe, I don't even know. I'm not saying that was a whatever, Sasquatch,
Right.
Bigfoot, but, you know, it is odd those rocks got put there in that area.
That is odd.
And that was pretty, it was, you know, that's been a good long time ago. Like I said, I mean, I'm 40 and I was probably 20 some years old at that point in time, because I had graduated, just graduated out of school and stuff. So, you know, it was around that time. So that's a pretty big gap from when my brother's experience and, you know, and all that. But
Right.
I don't know if those, you know, like I said, that's the only things I've ever, you know, the whole Bigfoot stuff and or if that's even what it was. I don't know what it was.
Right.
Maybe there was a dude with long hair. I don't know.
But anyway it goes, man, that's incredible. You know,
Yeah.
man, I appreciate you so much for sharing these stories with me, Jim. These are killer, man.
I just like to, I mean, I'm glad to be able to talk to somebody about the craft that I seen. I'm not going to say UFOs because, you know, I don't know. They were some kind of craft, you know. Like I said, the second one bothered me. Actually bothered me pretty bad for a good while. So
Yeah, I understand that.
But I can talk about it and share it with people. Maybe somebody else will have hear this podcast and have that, you know, and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, I've had that similar, you know, experience with it. So, like I said, several people in this area, they did at the same night, the same time. It was just my instant messenger. I had people sending me messages that I wasn't friends with, that were friends with people I was on instant messenger, wanting to accept. You know, I was like, friend request, tell me, I was like, I see this thing.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it was like 3 or 4 right in a row, and I'm just like, you know, I was like, well, get pictures.
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
you had cell phone. They're like, you know, but everybody says that. Oh, the cell phone. Well, but you know, my cell phone, even, you know, where I had mine to get to it, to take the picture, I had to get up and physically get the phone.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm not one of these people. Then I probably wasn't so much one of these people who sits with it and I'm just constantly on it all the time, especially when I'm just chillaxing.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to avoid it at all costs because of my job.
Yep.
It bothers me 24/7. So, you know, I was kind of just trying to unwind at that point, you know. But I wish I would have gotten. I kicked myself so hard.
Oh, man.
And when that stuff happening, you don't even really. That's not the first thing.
No.
You know, popped in my mind at that point.
Right.
And awestruck at first, and then scared. But
oh, man. Well, yeah. I'd be awestruck too. I think the last thing on my mind would be like, let me get a picture. It'd be like, why is this so close to my house? You know.
Right. I was thinking, why is this thing literally? When it first, like I said, the first one first, I thought, oh my gosh, there's like some kind of plane of some kind that's coming down.
Yeah.
At first, that's what the first thing popped at first, and I'm like, this isn't a plane. And like I said, for some reason in my mind, I'm not saying that they were Roman numerals that I could make out on this. I'm just saying that's what my mind seemed like it thought it saw on that.
Yeah.
But there was definitely some kind of
symbol
thing around this. That's how low it was. I could make that stuff out at first for just a short, teeny bit. But like I said, that encounter should have, I feel, bothered me worse. Once again, I come back to that second one, just really, for some reason, it still hits harder than the first one, and I don't know why. That uneasy, like, this thing's not friendly. Yeah. It's kind of how I felt with the second one. That's the first one. It didn't give me those kind of vibes, but the second one just really kind of like this kind of feeling. But anyways, that's I mean, if you have any questions, I know I've kept you on here forever.
You're good, brother. And every question I've had, I got questions written down like, did it act with intelligence? How big was it? What color were the lights? How many lights? Did they move? And you answered every question as I went, because you're just on the spot with all these details, because it's so vivid in your mind. It was so recent and it was so close, and it's moved you in such a way,
I don't think I'll ever forget the second one, for sure.
No,
it hit me that hard, and I don't know why. The
yeah.
first one seems like it should have been way worse for me, but the second one, really uneasiness is the best way I could describe how I felt with that one. And I know I've heard some people say, and I'm like I said, I'm not saying aliens. I'm not saying, I just know that these are not normal craft to be in the air. Whether they're whatever they are. I'm not a huge church guy.
Right.
I don't get me wrong. I went to church all the time when I was younger. I mean, I believe in, I'm definitely God and everything, wholeheartedly, 100%. For sure. But I've heard some people say some stuff about maybe demons and stuff, and I'm just hard for me to believe. Why would they? I don't know. Men, they do deceive, I guess. So
they do deceive. And if you look at, okay, you said it, not me. Okay, I didn't start this, but if you look in the Bible, the way angels are depicted would be arriving in chariots of fire, or a wheel within a wheel, or a wheel full of eyes, which would be like lights, right? And these demons, they were the fallen angels. They're Lucifer and his homeboys after they got cast out of heaven. Where I am personally in life, I think that aliens, these UFOs, are some kind of celestial thing. I think it's either an angel or a demon, good or bad. I'm not sure why they're here, what they're looking for. I can't tell you. I don't know, but I feel like it's spiritual more than anything else, man. And maybe you saw a good guy and a bad guy. I don't know.
Could be. The second one definitely did not give me good vibes.
Yeah.
I can tell you that for sure. That it was very. I still chased it.
I love that. I love
my wife calling me, and she's like, "You're crazy." I was like, "Well, I'm driving through the woods right now." I was like, "I'm gonna have to call you back."
That's West
Because
Virginia.
I've always been, I've just always been, and maybe that's why I don't get to have, I've been to crazy, supposed haunted places, and I've never. I've camped in the woods a lot, man. I've never had, I've ran into bears. I've never been afraid of the bears.
Yep.
When I ran into the bear out, a big bear out ATVing, she was freaking out. I'm not going to say how I ran into this bear, but it wasn't a good opportune minute when it happened up on me. But I wasn't, I'm just not really necessarily I don't freak out.
Yep.
In those, I guess you could say, because it doesn't do you good any good to do that either way.
Right.
You need to try to stay calm, especially if you're trying to be in control, somewhat control of the situation. So,
right.
That's the same way. Like I said, I don't want to say I freaked out the second time. I was more of I'm running this thing down because I'm going to figure out what it is.
Yep.
If I could have drove straight off the embankment into the woods to chase that thing, I would have. If there would have been a road through those woods, that just would have been in four-wheel drive. I'd have chased it. That's just how I am. I really like to have answers though about that stuff, and maybe I need to go more to answers to maybe church or Bibles, or reading more of the Bible.
It won't lead you wrong, you know that.
And I mean, I'm a big, my mom was a huge faith person. So I'm not gonna. I mean, I do 100%. God is,
Yeah, man.
is 100%.
Absolutely.
When it comes to Bigfoot, I do not believe. I believe that is a flesh and blood, very, very intuitive species that knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
And that's why it hasn't been caught. That's just how I feel about it. I 100% believe that is not a negative entity, in my opinion. There is people that say there are some that can be negative, but then again, if you're in somebody's if you're in somebody's backyard and you're not supposed to be there, that's probably how they feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I get real negative real quick when somebody's on my yard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't know. I've been really researching the Bigfoot stuff lately. Like not even because of my brother's experience or anything. I've just kind of taken a little bit of a just an interest in it for some reason lately. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me.
Well, I tell you what, if you believe it's like another human species or whatever, the Bible might have some surprises for you in there too.
Oh no, I know where you're going with that. I 100% believe that the what is that? The Abel or the prophets and stuff.
Esau.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Esau.
that's the hairy man.
The hairy man smelled like a goat, had hair like a goat on his arms and hands. And
That's kind of how my brother described the hair on that one that he could make out. He was like, it was like a reddish, dark brown, like a kind of a goat hair, but he was like, it didn't look dirty.
Yep.
How something lives in the woods like that, and has a Jason Momoa mane. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't. I hope one day I do experience that. That's one thing. I mean, like I said, that's one thing I do get into. I don't really get into the whole alien thing and all that craziness. Or I don't want to say craziness, but all that. I don't go down those rabbit holes with that stuff.
All right.
There's no particular reason why. It just doesn't really, never really. I'm not gonna say it don't interest me, but I don't know. I just even seeing the crafts and stuff. Definitely, those crafts did not belong where they were at. I can tell you that 100%. Just one thing I can say: they did not belong in the sky, and they were definitely defying anything that I have ever heard.
Yeah.
With no sound and no propulsion and just floating, and that was the craziest thing of all. I mean, there's just I could not. My mind just couldn't wrap around it, honestly. But anyways, that was my 2 experiences. I'm glad you let me share them and everything.
Man, I'm so grateful for you for sharing those. I'm for real super thankful. It being so recent, please, Jim, keep in touch with me, man. If something happens again,
I will do that.
I would love to know, because the Bigfoot activity, the UFO activity, or craft activity.
Well, I don't call them UFOs because I mean, I guess they are, because it stands for unidentified flying object.
Yeah, man.
I guess that it is a UFO. I've just never, I just kind of labeling it. I don't know, because it just, I don't know. It just
Makes
really,
it real,
I've always like talking about, I've seen this weird craft.
Yeah.
Craft. And because my one buddy's always like, just say it,
Yeah, man.
Say
it. Just come on over to this side, brother. You're all right, man.
Well, he was like, you don't know how many times we've seen these things when we were out on maneuvers, and he's just like, they come to us and be like, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
That's what they told him. And I mean, I'm talking about a pretty hardcore, grizzled, been through some pretty hardcore stuff guy. And when they first hit, because he was in a unit that seen some pretty bad combat right off the bat when he joined, and he was like, those things are all the time out there flying, especially in like a hot what he would call a hot situation. He was
Yeah.
like, it seemed like they were drawn to those areas, and he's just like, they were like, do not talk about them ever. They
Wow.
would tell him. Yeah, and he's just like, well, why? You know, he was one of them guys who's like, question why, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, you know, you want to, we're not going down that road. You know, more about it. So, but that's what I explained to him is what he said, that he said they did see the exact same thing a lot when he was overseas. So
Yeah.
he's like, those things would constantly come up, and they're like, then you know, they would report it and be like, well, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, well, yeah, there is. You know, I've watched it for an hour.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was always right before a big conflict would happen. That's what he told me, anyways. I don't know.
And it's a lot
He was
closer to the
probably one of
Holy
very few
Lands.
people. That's yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I just definitely those crafts did not belong doing what they were doing. That's all I know. And I'm just glad I got to share it with you and everything.
I am too. I'm thrilled that you shared it with me. I appreciate you. And we're recording this. This is May 3rd. I'll have this episode out for you probably around the 18th, if that works for you.
Okay.
If that
That's
works
awesome.
because
I listened to the podcast. You know, like I said, there's yours and then a few other ones that I, you know, stay on top of. And then I'll look for those photos on my Facebook, because I mean, they got to be in my history somewhere.
yeah, man,
I'll try to send that stuff over to you.
I'd love that.
That way, because I do got some decent ones.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing maybe at least 5 or 6. So
Sweet.
I'll send them over to you.
I appreciate you, brother. Hey, if I could recommend one other podcast to you, I haven't been on that show or anything like that yet, but it's called Blurry Creatures.
Okay.
If you're not familiar with that podcast, it is, I think it'll be right up your alley, man.
Okay. I'll check that out. I will definitely check that.
Yeah, check it out. It's honestly my favorite podcast. I like it better than my own podcast. Yeah.
As soon as I get off here, I'm going to get on there and I'll be like, yeah, I'm a Blurry Creatures. I'll put that in my watch list. That way I'll follow it. That way I know.
Yeah, man, it's good. I'm telling you, it's good.
I'll check that out.
All right, brother. Y'all have a good night. Everybody that's too shy to get on the camera, y'all have a good night too. I know you're back there.
Yeah, he's waving. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, brother. Have a good night.
You too.
Later.